All right, guys, this is going to be the detailed version of the Jaleayah Davis case and all the little weird things that go on in this case. So let's just start off by explaining exactly what happened that night. So this is Parkersburg. Jaleayah lives up here in the Murrieta with her sister, Tab. And she basically had made friends with this new girl, Kristen Beckold, and she came to her house to pick her up. This is her house right here. I'm gonna do a little pin drop so you guys can see exactly. Her dad's a doctor, and I think her mom was in law enforcement in some degree. And yeah, so they basically stayed there for a little while. They got ready. I think they stayed there for 2 hours. And sorry, 1 second here. Bear with me, guys. Sorry, there's a bit of a distance here. So they decided that they were going to meet up at Brian Sapp's house. So Freddie and his good friend Jordan Campbell, they had decided that they were all going to meet up here. So they don't get here till, gosh, I think it's like 8 o'clock. It's fairly late. Anyways, this is Brian Sapp's house. And this has all been confirmed. They don't really give you the specific addresses, so we had to do a lot of investigative work and figure out. She said it had a porch and one big window, and so we finally were able to pinpoint exactly where this place was. And so they stay here for quite a while, probably a good 2 hours, and they're playing beer pong and they're drinking. And at some point, they run out of alcohol and they have a friend, Katie Nelson, who they decide that they're going to go pick up. So Katie worked at a restaurant up this way. It was a Hardee's restaurant. So they went and picked up Katie Nelson, and they went to the beer store to get some more alcohol. And they got these little tiny bottles of Ciroc vodka. And that vodka apparently got Jaleayah really completely hammered. I don't know how much other alcohol was here, but they apparently drank very, very heavily. And it wasn't until midnight or even like 1 o'clock that they decided that they were going to go to the Nip and Q, which is just over here. So this is the Nip and Q bar that all these kids were at that night. Right here. So just to give you guys a quick little look around the neighborhood. And yeah, so that's that's where they were until about 3 o'clock. Now, there's a whole bunch of different accounts in what Freddie says, what Kristen says, what Chris Latimer says, what Katie Nelson say, even Brian Sapp. Brian Sapp, the guy's house that they were at, he's like, well, they didn't leave at 3 o'clock with me. He's like, I left when the bar closed. And he's like, I didn't see any of them around. So what that tells me is that they probably left a little bit early when they got back. So Jaleayah's car is parked here at Brian's. So they get back here, and I think what's typical for a lot of these small town groups is after the bar closes, they all look for another party to go to. Okay. So at that point, that's going to bring us into my next phase here. Oh, we've got the picture right there. So when they were at the Nip and Q, this is where the whole problem started. Jaleayah was apparently quite intoxicated, and she was dancing with Chris Latimer. And so one of Kristen's best friends is this Katie Nelson girl, and she's been on again, off again with Chris Latimer for years and years and years. However, Jaleayah has known Chris since grade 9. So they've talked to each other, they've hung out, and I don't know if she was just being flirtatious or what was going on. Maybe it was just because she was intoxicated. Well, this is when Kristen doesn't take kindly to this, and she thinks Jaleayah is way offside, hitting on Chris in front of Katie, knowing that Chris and Katie have been together for quite some time, but had recently broken up. One of the other girls there is Freddie's ex, Nicole Diaz, and he has a child with her. Now, this is where it gets weird. So Freddie says that he actually sees Jordan leave with another girl because he realizes that Jaleayah is not interested in him. So Nicole ends up back at Freddie's. She doesn't remember how she got there because she was apparently high on heroin. Very, very sketchy alibi. And I think she said when she got back that Jordan was sleeping on the couch and she made herself a bowl of like, or a can of noodles or Chef Boyardee or something like that. Okay, so now we're going to get into cell phone towers, times, who they were talking to. These are Jaleayah's cell phone records. And you guys, I believe, do I have the banner going? So that banner that's currently going is the actual banner for StreamYard that you can call in on. So if you have any questions, it'd be great. Just go ahead, call in, and we can talk through and I can explain it. Sometimes I get sidetracked on my own little thing here. So let's talk about this phone call here. This one at 3:20. So this is after they've gotten out of the bar. They're back at Brian Sapp's house. They're all calling around. They're trying to find where the next after party is. This phone number here that's blocked out is when Jaleayah talks to a guy named Brandon. She asks if she can come over and stay at Brandon's. Brandon said there's a couple girls here that you got in a fight with last weekend, so that's not a good idea. This phone call here is when at 3:28, this is when she calls her sister, Tab, and says to go meet her at the BP. Now, I just want to show everyone exactly what's going on here. So this is where the BP gas station is that she said to meet her at. Now, you'll notice it's also the same road that goes right up to Kristen Davis's house. And it's also the road where you take Emerson and you can come off of the main I-77, which is, this is where her accident was right here. So why did she change it at 3:28? This was to be picked up at BP. And then at 3:33, she says, no, pick me up at the rest area outside Morietta. So it changed from BP to all the way up here. There's a rest area right here. So this is where they were going to change the location to. So Tab has been sitting there for quite a while. And when she realizes that she's not seeing her sister, and when she was talking to her sister said, well, I'm on the interstate. So this is why her sister turned and started to come back down that road. This was a butt dial at 3:36, or maybe this was somebody else that was in the vehicle. And this was a call to Tab right here at 3:36. This phone call here was Tab calling Jay. And you can see this is at 11:40. Same thing, she's at the accident site, and we have confirmation that the trucker that was there was talking to Tab and her friend. And you'll notice that Tab's phone is pinging off 11:40. That's the accident scene, basically. We'll get into the actual coverages here pretty quick. Oh, I lost my train of thought. Okay, so the first, if we follow this, we go from 11:56, 11:59, 11:53, 11:40. So Brian's house is right here. So we go red into the yellow for just a brief second, which is the 11:53, and then 11:40, because we know that Tab has come from the very, very top side. So Tab is stopped up here in the green. So that tells us for a fact that Kristen was with Jaleayah at this time. She had to be, because Tab also confirmed at 3:33 that she could hear Kristen in the background. This phone call, they could hear Kristen in the background. This phone call with Brandon, they could hear Kristen in the background. She did not magically leave while Jaleayah was on the interstate and throw her voice into Jaleayah's car and also be at McDonald's. So essentially, this cell phone data is what proves that Kristen was with Jaleayah that night. Sorry, I'm focused and not reading a lot of the questions, but you guys, there's only 7 people. Call in. This can go really easy. So this is Kristen Beckhold. This is Freddie Scott. This is their drink of choice, the Ciroc vodka. This is Kristen. And I think this is actually the Chris Latimer. I'm missing some of my notes. So rumors are her partying affected her schooling. So this is after all of this stuff is transpired. Rumors are that Kristen, her partying affected her schooling, and she wasn't attending class. Her dad did it. So her dad pulled her out of school to get her away from her boyfriend. She was in a bar fight with a girl who was injured, and EP is Evil Princess is what they nickname her on Facebook. And her lawyer got her out of it. So if somebody was participated in something as horrific as Jaleayah Davis's murder, you would expect to see some sort of other social problems. And Kristen is just screaming. She's got issues with alcohol, drugs. She's getting into fights. She's just literally the perfect candidate. She was also arrested here for being passed out drunk in her car outside a bar, but didn't receive much punishment. She's also been photographed with Jaleayah's keychain, right? We all remember that. She finally gave it back after this case was closed. And this is an officer asking Chris Latimer what he thinks of Freddie. He thinks that he's a wannabe lowlife with a thug mentality. It's been rumored since high school that he deals drugs. He's been arrested for small offenses and is currently in jail. Jaleayah's mom came face to face with him not too long ago and told him he would see more of the inside of a jail cell than outside. He just taunted her. So we've got the 2 people that most likely participated in this in great extent, having a lot of social problems after this accident. So this is Camille Waldron asking Kristen Beckhold, so what happened there at Brian's? Well, we were sitting in the car trying to figure out where we were going to go, if we're going to go inside or we're going to go home. Jaleayah was talking to, this is the Brandon guy on the phone, and I think she was trying to go hang out with him or whoever she was. I couldn't find her wristlet. her wristlet was somewhere in the car, and she was fussing with me about it because she thought that I had done something with it. I told her that I tried to take it away from her like a few times tonight so that you wouldn't lose it. And she basically was just like, I don't know where it is. She was kind of like blaming me for it. And I was like, I don't have it. So I found it for her. And we found her keys because she needed to get something out of her car. And we decided that we were going to go home. And we thought that Jaleayah was going to come with us, but she ended up calling her sister and asked her to come pick her up. But by this, so her statement doesn't make any sense because by 3:33, they were well down the highway. So this statement is completely false that she's just given to Camille Waldron, the head investigator of this whole thing. And I just can't believe that this police officer was never ever out at this scene, yet she can say that this was all just a horrific accident. It's just unbelievable. We showed you Kristen's house. Yeah, so this is just showing more about the times, 3:28, the 3:33 phone call. Yeah, this 3:28, Tabby can hear Kristen, or she can hear Jaleayah say, give me the keys. And so we know for sure that even at 3:28, Kristen is with Jaleayah. And this is where they were driving down the interstate, which would have been all the way back here. And Jaleayah is calling Kristen some horrible names. And so this is also confirmed. It's just unbelievable. Now, this cell phone record is the cell phone record of Kristen. And you can see this tower is hitting off 1140. Where does Kristen live? Oh, I can go to this little map here. Kristen lives way up here in the green, which fits with where we have this other stuff, 1140. I'm actually going to go right to the big map. Okay, so way up here, we see Kristen's house. This is about where the accident takes place right here, directly across from it. It's just crazy. And so the McDonald's is over here that she claims to have been at with Freddie. This would have been pinging off a completely different cell phone tower than the ones that we have in our document here. Let me just show you. That McDonald's is over here. So even this yellow one, which would be considered the 1156, even that one, because that's where the nip and cue was, even that one doesn't reach the McDonald's. So there's no way that when we go to Kristen's records that she was at the McDonald's. She was at this. She was there from 4 o'clock all the way till the next morning at 10 o'clock. She moves. So unbelievable that they use this cell phone data to say that no, she was at home the whole time. I think I explained that pretty well. So basically, Tab was coming this direction. This is where the accident was. This is where they got out. They walked around. And this is where Kristen's house is over here. And that's where the 1140 cell phone target is right here. How much time have we gotten through? 19 minutes. All right, we're making good time here. So first people on the scene. So at 3:48, the first 911 caller was made from a truck driver who discovered Jaleayah's body in the passing lane on the interstate. Sir, I'm at the 181.6 mile marker northbound on I-77. I cannot make a confirmation of this right now. I'm walking back. I think I just saw a human being lying dead on the highway, sir. I understand what you're saying. If you don't feel comfortable, Getting close to it, hoping it's a deer, sir. I really am, but pretty sure I saw what I saw. Oh, man. In fact, there's some other people. I don't know if you're getting more phone calls. 2 other guys just stopped down here at the bottom of the hill. So now I'm going to go back to the map, and I want to explain exactly where this is. Because without seeing it, it doesn't really do it justice. Okay. So Jaleayah's car hit the rail up here initially. Okay. The truck driver that we're looking at right now that just called this in, he drives his truck down here. This is where Jaleayah's body was. It was laying right here. He drove his truck right to here. And so he pulled his truck up into this side of the lane right here. Jaleayah's car was found all the way down around this corner, parked right next to this, the 181.8 marker right here. So I just want you guys to visualize just how far that is. All the way back there, the accident, truck driver's parked here, car comes all the way down here, the dome light is on, the doors are locked, and the car is running. Obviously, the 2 right tires were completely flat and shredded, but the car made it all the way down here. And one thing that's important to note right now is that that truck driver was saying that there was 2 other cars that had just passed him. And so just quickly, he's parked right here at the 181.6 marker, and there's 2 other cars that pull out in front of him. So anybody that would have been involved, they could have been walking along in the ditch. They could have been talking on their cell phone, saying, hey, come get me. I'm just over here, to somebody like Freddie or to Chris Latimer. 12-year-old, the truck driver and his 12-year-old son's statement. Okay, sir, for the reason I'm calling today is I wanted to obtain a statement of record, blah, blah, blah. Can you excuse me? I have a terrible cold. Well, my son and I were traveling northbound and heading up. We just passed the exit 2. We thought we counted deer, count 50 bucks, and just out of my left, I seen an object, and I was not sure of what the object was, but it looked like a body to me, and I reacted quick. I did. Oh, I get so long. Reacted very quick, and I pulled over just as soon, immediately, and I grabbed my cell phone and started calling 911. As I was getting down out of the truck, and I told you, stay in the truck. As I talked to the 911 operator, I told them I am not sure, but I think I've seen a body in the highway. And as I was walking back, I told the operator, I hope it is not a body. If it is, did not want to see it as I was walking up. There was a couple of vehicles that passed. Now, I don't recall what they look like, but I remember when the tanker came up, because when the tanker driver had run over her, he had seen me on the side there, and when he got over on the left lane, he ran her over. That was when I was confirmed that it was a body. And at that time, it was kind of freaked out as I was telling the 911 operator, I've got to get out here and stop this traffic, that it was a body. And I think another car or so might have gotten by. So at this point, he's talking about 3 cars that could have gotten by. So of those 3 cars, that could have very easily had been Freddie at this time. Because remember, Freddie is last seen leaving the McDonald's at 3:33 or 3:32. It only takes about 8 minutes to get out here. So that's 3:40. This is already 3:41, 3:44, something like that. So plenty of time for Freddie to drop off Katie Nelson on the road, which is their story, and make his way out here off of Emerson. This is kind of interesting. And I think another car or so might have gotten by, and gosh, it couldn't have been 20 to 30 seconds is when Officer Shad arrived. So we got a cop car that's patrolling here at 3 o'clock in the morning, and he's immediately on the scene. It's only suspicious because this family has all those connections with law enforcement. Maybe this is why he was removed from the case, because we don't see his name come up anywhere else. Like, he doesn't investigate or anything like that. So maybe he took relief after finding her body. I don't know. If you want to read this, you can pause it and come back through. There's a lot of descriptions in here. And I walked back over to the other side and started to look around. And when I started to look around, I was like, look, I seen the white coat on the guardrail, and it didn't look right to me. I don't know anything about accidents or stuff, but as I looked at the white coat, it was like a big blotter of blood on the right side of the coat. And it just didn't seem right to me at that time. I'm no investigator or anything, but I've watched too much TV, I guess. I know it just seemed like to me it wasn't consistent with what I was seeing. I could see the mark on the pavement where I thought the rumble strips were, where it looked like there was a head or something had hit it. And then there was a blood trail that looked like it had slid over on the interstate, over the yellow line, and into the passing lane. And as I started to look more, I kind of noticed that she didn't have any top on. It looked like she was missing a left breast. There was no head to identify that I can remember. It was so gruesome. I don't recall the shoes on her feet. So this is another point that's really interesting, and this is just one of my speculations. Is I think when they were trying to remove her from the guardrail in the car, you see her hood on her white jacket is ripped off, and then I think they, just in the effort in trying to get her out from in between the pinned car and the rail, that's when I think all of her clothing got removed, because it just doesn't make any other sense to do it beforehand. Or yeah, it's so, I think when they were trying to remove her from the guardrail in between the car, they pulled on her jacket really hard because they couldn't get her out. She was stuck, and they just continued to keep pulling. And this could also explain, the truck driver said that her pants were pulled down. So if you're trying to pull somebody up out of that caught between the guardrail and the car, that could explain why her pants got pulled down. That explains also why her shirt and her bra got, you know, broken or pulled off in that exchange. Um, and at the same time, I wanted to try to explain the shoes. So her mom says that her feet weren't dirty. So maybe after they finally do get her out and they slide her up against the car and they rest her on the trunk, maybe that's when somebody unzipped her shoes, took them off, threw them in the back seat of the car, and then threw her into the oncoming traffic. And that way her feet could stay clean, even though I'm fairly certain that she was trying to run away after the initial impact of the guardrail at the start of the accident. I'm pretty certain she didn't go through the passenger window, somehow lose her shoes at the time she was doing that, miss the visor, miss that stuff that's hanging down from the mirror. She didn't hit the passenger mirror, nothing like that. But then she flies 100 feet, gets run over by her own car. This really needs to be reinvestigated. This is just it's unacceptable police work. Okay, kept looking around. By now, the fire people got in there. We got the interstate backed up. The paramedic was there. She was with me over by the guardrail, and I said to her, "This is weird how that coat is sitting there, you know? How did it get there?" I mean, she couldn't have been knocked out of it. I remember the paramedic had said that she had seen people knocked out of their clothes, and it was weird. It was like sitting there. I just kept looking. I couldn't believe we both had our flashlights, and we would look down, Any damage on the or blood on the boots? Interesting question. I didn't hear of any. And yeah, I'd really, that's one of the questions I also have, because I think that if the accident happened or she got run down the way I think she did, that left leg, the inside of her left shoe, I think will have a bunch of wear on the outside edge of it from where the car ran her over. That's just my suspicion, but I can't confirm or deny that. Okay, well, you guys can read through these. These reports are 17 pages of this interview, so I don't think it's productive to go through every single. This one is okay. And I don't know if you talked to Sergeant Pickens or if he had gotten some of his information, but after my son and I had left, I asked him exactly what did you see? Because I wanted to know if he saw the body or anything. And he started telling me that he saw another vehicle down there by that vehicle. And I said, well, what did you see? Was it in front or behind? He said, no, it was on the side of that vehicle. And he could tell that it was a pickup truck because the lights were up high. But I asked him, did you see anybody get out or anything? And he said, no. And I told Sergeant Pickens about it as soon as possible. And then he talked to him. He said he was pretty sure that he thought it was a red and it had high tail lights. And for a second, it might have went in reverse. And then when he was sitting in the truck, he didn't really pay a lot of attention to it because his dad had bought him a magazine and he went back into the sleeper. So just back here, so this is where the 12-year-old and his dad were parked right here. And a couple cars had parked up here apparently. And the little boy is saying, 12-year-old boy is saying that he saw another car pull up beside the car up here, maybe even back up. So is this where potentially Kristen Beckold and maybe Jordan Campbell walked along the side of the ditch and said, pick us up by her car on the corner? And that's where Freddie and all those other cars that got by the accident scene, maybe that's where they picked him up. Because what I think ultimately the kids were doing is they were going to go to a party up here at this hotel, the Super 6 Inn. So I think this is where their after party was. That's why the pickup spot changes from the BP to this rest area, because Kristen and Freddie and all those people were going up here to an after party. And so they're like, oh no, we're going right up your way. We're going to drop you off anyway. You're drunk. So I think that is the explanation. And just quickly as a side note, this address here, this is Amber Stafford. She actually ended up doing 6 months in prison because she claimed that she was on the interstate that night and she saw another car run Kristen's car into the guardrail. And based on cell phone data, they could eliminate her instantly, or they could prove that she wasn't on the interstate where she said she was, and that's why they put her in jail for 6 months. So they can eliminate Amber Stafford, but they can't figure out all these other 6 or 7 people that are involved. It just screams of a massive cover-up. And like I said, all these documents are on the Facebook website, Justice for Jaleayah. Yeah, you can go see pretty much everything, all the police reports, all the individual reports from Kristen, Freddie. They never interviewed Jordan Campbell, but you can see Chris Latimer's, basically everyone except Jordan, including the truck driver and his 12-year-old son. They have reports for him as well. So yeah, this was interesting. Green vehicle, hard time stopping it. Okay, and I believe there was a red vehicle that passed us, a small vehicle. I can't remember, and a green one. And the green one was the one I had a hard time to get to stop. Now this green one sort of matches up with the loaner car that Freddie was driving at the time. Um, I can't imagine, you're trying to stop a vehicle and then this guy's just bound and determined to get around you. Well, he's bound and determined to get around you for a reason. So just little things like that. So I just thought to bring that one little point up. Yeah, if you guys want to call in and ask me some questions that might be useful. I haven't had a caller in a long time. Okay, anything specific that you can tell me that didn't look right to you? The jacket lying on the guardrail, the blood spatter where I knew where the initial hit took, and the way the blood had traveled across over to the left lane and it didn't look right. Because I don't know anything about it, but and the way the blood was soaked on the jacket, it didn't look right at all. The blood, if I remember correct, the jacket was partially opened the way that it laid on the guardrail, maybe like 4 inches, and it was laid up there like a neat manner. And the blood was on the right hand side of the jacket, and it was real thick. It was really heavy. It didn't seem right. It didn't add up to me. And I actually thought when I looked at it that it looked more consistent with maybe somebody had the jacket and was holding it on something that bled than it being on her or anything. And the body being partially nude, that didn't add up to me at all. Just didn't add up. Thoughts through my head were sexual assault, drugs, alcohol. I mean, there was thoughts going through my head, my mind, what's going on here? So obviously he saw the scene firsthand and he just said, this just doesn't look right. Uh, all she had on was a pair of pants and a G-string. There was no top. I really couldn't identify a head. I could see brain tissue and brain matter. This is the only identification of a head. I don't recall anything else other than the pants on her. And as he said, the pants were halfway down. They weren't all the way up around her waist. And again, there's 16 pages of his interview. The truck driver, the first person on the scene. This is the son's interview. This is kind of interesting. It's very short and very short and quick. I understand that you were with your dad on the interstate on Saturday morning, and when your dad got out of his truck, you stayed in the truck. Yep. Were you in the front seat or the back seat or somewhere else? I kept on moving back and forth pretty much. Okay, well, let me ask you this. While you were in the truck, were you able to see anything ahead of you? Yeah, I remember seeing a red truck or car that had high taillights. And that's about it. That's all the little guy can remember. So I have a few pictures there we're going to come up on. This is Freddie's apartment building that he lived in. This could be just serendipitous. Cadillac, I think the one that he takes through McDonald's has a sunroof in it or whatever. And I think the car that he was driving was a loaner car. But we do have a couple of interesting things. So I was reading a comment. Update: car returned in Death of Jaleayah Davis that Freddie Scott sold his 2-month-old car a few days after Jaleayah was killed. So we've got so many suspicious events surrounding this. And I don't know if anybody can remember this car. Maybe you bought it from Freddie Scott. I don't know. Maybe we can get it swabbed all this time later for DNA. One of the passengers that got in this car, remember, they're the ones that had to pick up Jaleayah with all that blood. That blood, it transferred somewhere. And if they got in Freddie's car, not this car, but the one that he sold a few days after the accident. So this is the car that Freddie was driving that night. I don't know if it's green or black. This video is very grainy. This seems to be all we ever get is grainy video. But it's very interesting. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you guys right to that McDonald's, just so I can show you exactly what's going on here. So this is the McDonald's. And okay, so this is where you place your order, right here, as you drive around. This is your pay window. This is where you pick up your food. And if you'll notice this, you go straight out here. This is Ohio Avenue. This thing goes north. Well, that goes south. That goes north. That goes west, and this goes east. If you go east from here, that's where you get to where Jaleayah was found. You can get to Kristen Beckhold's. You could drop off Katie to where Chris Latimer says he picked her up. So it's very interesting. But why is this important? I'll show you. So this picture right here, this is going around the second time. They've already been through the drive-through. So they are not going south. They're not going north. They're headed east. You've made sense of a lot of weird indiscrepancy around the scenes that were quite hard to answer. I think I have, and that's what I'm trying to do, is put myself in the shoes of everybody and visualize exactly where everybody is at every moment in time. And if you recall, at 3:33, this is when Tabby's on the phone with Jaleayah, and she's freaking out, and she's calling Kristen every bad name in the book. Kristen's not in this car. Kristen is with Jaleayah over on the interstate, totally different area. This is Chris Latimer. Have you heard anything like that since? No, I haven't heard anything, but all I can think of is the reason that Jaleayah left is because me and Katie dated forever, and like even between, we are still always have like something, you know what I mean? And I think maybe Kristen was like mad at Jaleayah for trying to talk to me. I had talked to Jaleayah a long time ago before, like up until now, we have done whatever. But I think Kristen was mad at Jaleayah because I'm pretty sure Katie told me that Kristen was, why are you talking to him? Katie's right here. Okay, so maybe it was over you? Maybe, I don't know. But the only reason I can think of why Jaleayah would have left and the reason they fought was because they got in an argument. Because, I mean, Katie saying that Kristen was like, why would you talk to Chris? Like right in front of Katie. Like that was before we got to the bar. Like that was before we got to the bar? Did they meet up before? Well, that's weird. Maybe Chris was over at the house, at Brian Sapp's house. And maybe Jaleayah was hitting on Chris over there. This is the first I remember of Chris saying they were together before that. This is Katie Nelson. This is Nicole Diaz. This is the one Freddie has the baby with. What are we at? 44 minutes. All right. You know what? What do you guys think? No one's called in. I think this is a good place to stop right now before we go too far into things. So if anyone has any questions, please call in and I can go over what we've touched on already, and there's a lot of data there to unpack already. I mean, we go through the cell phone data, we go through who's where, and this actually just caught me off guard. Chris admits to being with her before they got to the bar. When was this? This has to have been over at Brian Sapp's. Anyway. Steve, I think if you just go back, you can just replay the video on YouTube. I'm gonna keep going. So this is just the first segment. I did a previous video where I did a recap of the whole thing, Steve. I did a quick version, right? Because usually what I do are these big, long timelines that nobody has the patience to go sit through. So what I'm going to try to do is keep these a little bit shorter, keep them to 45 minutes to an hour. That way you can unpack them, and we'll just keep going. We'll do this again tomorrow night, and I'll cover the next segment, and then, I mean, obviously we won't go into the Super Bowl or the UFC fight, but we'll just keep going until we get through it. We've got two people that are boots on the ground out here, and I think I'm hopeful that we'll get something really good done out here. But thank you for coming, and it's going to take me a while to build up my viewership again, but we'll get there. This case is really, really, really interesting, and I think that you'll enjoy it just as much as I've enjoyed going through all of this. And we've got some crack people looking into the cell phone tower stuff, just so that if we have to take that to the police, we can really, really nail them to the wall. And there might even be, who knows, every time we get into these cases, we always learn different tools and techniques for going after these criminals. But thank you guys. Thank you all so much. And tomorrow night, 6 o'clock Mountain Standard Time, we'll continue on and we'll get the rest of this done. Thank you all so much.